Welcome, everybody. This is John Paul Dutch, Dr. Speed Selling. This is Raging Verbalist number 143. Raging Verbalist, if this is your first time, welcome. If you're a longtime viewer, glad to have you back. Always helps if you hit that like and subscribe and notification. Also, you can catch us on the Facebook page, Position to Win Book, and check that out. You can always post there and ask some things and all of those things. Talk about a variety of topics that interest me. Also, I have someone who stands in for you. So we have the ever lovely Sandra. So let's bring in Sandra right now. Sandra, welcome.
Hello, how are you?
Doing great. I know that you guys are getting much deserved rain. So Raging
Yes.
Verbalist, we cover all topics. So it is raining in Nebraska. And anybody who had that on DraftKings or on some kind of betting, you just won. I mean, we have proof
That's
positive
right.
moisture from the sky. So
That's right.
excellent, Sandra. What are we talking about today?
All right, we've got phone wars part 2. So it was too big of a topic to cover in one session. So here we are.
Excellent. Well, and the last one we talked a lot about the two main religions in the world. Apple iOS and Android. But this time we're talking more of the practical side of it, right?
Yes, yes. So kicking off with that, how many phones do you carry?
Well, I actually carry 4 phones because I have a variety of different businesses, and we'll talk about why you should carry more than one phone in a little bit and go over some of that. I carry 4 phones. So I have my personal phone, and then I have and I don't have the 4th phone out. I mean, I'm out and about traveling, so just trying to keep track of it. By the way, I have color coded them. I would suggest you do that, so that way you don't forget which phone is which. But I have 4 phones that I carry at all times, and each for a different business and a different purpose, and that way I can keep things segregated and separated, and all of those things. I've been carrying multiple phones for decades now, and it's good reason there. We'll get into the good reasons for that in a second.
All right, so how many phones should someone carry?
Well, if you're in business, even if you're just starting out in business, I would recommend that you always have 2 phones. And the reason why is that you'll meet people and you'll say, hey, why don't you give me a call or something. And I know that there are people who are of a certain age that don't think of phones as something that you actually use to talk to people with. But I'm big believer in communications. We have more ways to communicate. So my suggestion is that you should always have at least 2 phones if you're in business, if you're in sales, if you're in marketing. Whatever you do, you should always have 2 phones, because that way you can have a certain separation from your personal and your business, and then that way you won't get those 2 confused.
All right, do you recommend, if working for someone, that their personal phone should be separate from their business phone?
Well, we have enough data now to know that people do some crazy things on their personal phone, and they do some really wacky things that go on. I'll tell you what, probably one of the goofiest stories is that somebody had used their personal phone for business, and they quit a company, and the company demanded that they turn in the phone. But of course the phone was attached, had all kinds of photos that maybe they didn't want people to see. They had it and it turned into a really big problem, and that's a big giant mistake. Other circumstances that I was involved in a project many years ago, and one of the main marketing guys had like 550 contacts, and this was when we didn't have smartphones. We had 550 contacts, and essentially they were the business, or the project's business, and he had them all on this phone. So when they went to separate, he said, well, but it's my phone. And that turned into a real, shitstorm is the only way to say it.
So when you're in business, should you always carry 2 phones?
I think if you're going to be in business, you should, as soon as you can afford it, get a second phone. There's lots of very cheap plans out there. And besides which, I'm kind of a phone number kind of fanatic about things. So I like zeros in my numbers. I like all of those things. So I think that if you're really going to be in business, you should always have a separate business line. By the way, in the good old days when you used to call up the phone company and say, well, hey, by the way, I want to have a business line, they'd go, well, let me see how much money we can, squeeze out of you, Spanish Inquisition style, because they would take what was a cheap home phone number, residential number, and then they would, multiply it by like a factor of 3 or 4. So, but today that isn't the case. So I would always recommend that you have a separate phone for your business as soon as you possibly can. And that way you can control the number.
All right. And do you see people who have more than one phone?
Yeah, I see people who have more than one phone. I mean, and the example that I'll give you is that I'm at a at a resort, and I was walking down the hall, and there was a maid, and she had a phone that the company gave her, and she had her own personal phone. So I stopped and had a little conversation with her. She didn't know that I was going to be doing this today, and it was interesting because, of course, she knew that she needed 2 phones, so that way she would separate this out and wouldn't get in trouble. Again, the downside is if your company provides you with a phone and you rely upon that phone, they own your data. They own what is ever on it. Whatever is on there, they own that, and that's just a reality of life. And that's a really a big mistake. And the other thing is that there's a confusion factor, because if you ever separate, especially if you're working for somebody, you're going to have to give up the phone. You're going to have to do that. So I always recommend that people do that. In fact, here's a bonus disaster that I saw going on. Is I had a client years ago, and what the client did was he had this customer service number. The customer service number was up on a website, and they were very clever, and they had put it out on actually a burner phone. It kind of tells you how many years ago it was. And no, they weren't the kind of business that they needed a burner phone, but that was the cheapest way to get it. And to my horror, and I was doing it, and they're doing turnaround, is that the person who had that phone, she was good at what she was doing, but it was always in her purse. My biggest fear is purse gets stolen. We're out of the customer service business right there. So what I did was I, of course, repatriated the phone, and we put that number out to a cloud-based phone. And by the way, there's we maybe should even do like phone wars part 3 or business phone part 3, which would be where we would talk about when you should use a cloud-based system. I use both actually as a hybrid, because again, communications are that important. Now, since communications are that important, since life is so short and you got to be good in business, what I would recommend though is that you get the best position you possibly can. And the way to understand how to do that is to go get my book. Most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. It just takes them 3 to 5 years to realize it. And of course, you can get this at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. You can get the physical book also at positiontowinbook.com, positiontowinbook.com. Go check that out, because see, here's a real book. Also, you can get it electronically on Kindle, Barnes & Noble Nook, and Apple iBooks. And if you're doing remote work, or you're thinking of doing remote work, or you are involved in all remote work, go check out Remote Work for a Better World exclusively on the Amazon Kindle store, and you'll learn a lot about how to do these things. So go check that out, positiontowinbook.com, if you want to have me personally sign it and send it off to you. So, Sandra, what's next?
All right. So from a business standpoint, how should you address your own phone usage?
Well, when you're in business, you really have to kind of get your hands around what you're trying to accomplish. And I can tell you that one of the things that I run into a lot is people mistakenly think that, I want to save some money. I'm just gonna stick with one phone. I'm not gonna do that. It's nice having a separate phone, because it's first off, it's easier to know for, these are all my business calls. This is where this comes from. And then that way you have that. And I think from it also means that you may have a different plan. Now, some companies allow this, some companies don't. But I can tell you that when I first got onto an unlimited phone plan many years ago, I started cranking up crazy hours. I was doing crazy hours anyway, but I was having to do it in more cumbersome ways. But once you remove some of those caps, that means that you can communicate more often, more effectively, and more completely. Also, you should always make sure that you have more capacity on your phone than you think you're going to need. Biggest thing that you can run into is people who are just running really super tight. Uh, a company that doesn't even appear on my resume, hired me away from, probably was the big mistake, if you will. Anyway, but hired me away from this great job and show up and they had $100 a month cap. Now, if you hear that today, everybody's shocked because nobody pays $100 a month because you get unlimited for significantly less than that. But anyway, basically, you couldn't use the phone, and it was so ironic because I had the VP of sales with me, and he wanted to make a call to his wife, and I said, "You can't make a call on my phone unless you are going to pay me back for it." So in those days, everybody just had one phone. Today, your own business usage, you want to make sure that you can separate it as much as you possibly can.
All right. So to follow up with that, what about your team members' phones and phone usage?
So one of the projects that I'm involved in, whenever we hire somebody, especially for a specific task, what we do is we end up getting them a phone and we ship them that phone. And then that way there's no mistakes. We own that phone. We own the data that's on the phone. We tell them, how to use that and why they should use it. And that way we take that burden on ourselves. Nothing worse than somebody saying, "Well, geez, I don't know. I'm using the phone 20% of the time for business, 80% for personal." So what we do is, especially in specific roles, we will actually get them a phone and have them use that phone exclusively.
All right. And how have cell phones changed the way we do business over the last 5 years?
Well, I think 5-year window is an interesting one. 2007, the first iPhone comes out. Absolutely was a game changer. Put Microsoft out of the phone business. Eventually puts Research in Motion, which is BlackBerry, out of that phone business. Kills all of these other phone companies. Not that they're not around anymore. Some of them are still around, but essentially it was a game changer because it really talked about what a smartphone could be. Now, I don't go back that far specifically because in the last 5 years, as the networks have finally caught up, and by the way, I have, I could do an entire rant on networks and how good or bad they are, mostly bad, by the way, considering how long I've been living through building networks, it's just nuts. But let's talk about the last 5 years. More capability than ever before. You can go out and look up things. You can go do things. I believe that no one has an excuse as long as there's cell coverage for not being able to, get directions. I mean, Google Maps is out there. I also use Apple Maps when I'm using my iPhone. But everybody can get access to more information in a shorter period of time than ever before. Now, there's a dumbing down factor that happens to that, and I've seen this happen before. And the dumbing down effect is that since we have the entire internet at our fingertips, since we can go grab anything that we possibly want, it means that there's a certain laziness that goes about in which people don't actually learn things. And that's a mistake, in my opinion, because I think you should be able to navigate no matter what. I think you should be able to make sure that you can deal with numbers, having a calculator. Surprisingly, there's a lot of people who don't even know how to use the calculator on their phone, even though everybody's got one. So in the last 5 years, you have access to the entire world. You can go see things. Interestingly enough, we still have not seen the full transition to where people are using the correct web themes that can allow you to actually have a usable portable website. I see that every single day. And so that's still an issue, but it has changed business dramatically in the last 5 years. It also means that you should be able to send people information and do things that you couldn't do before. We're still not quite there, but it has improved dramatically in the last 5 years. And in fact, I would recommend to every single one of you that you should do what, and I'm not just saying to do this, I do this on a regular basis, is pick an area or pick a topic about your phone and go watch some YouTube videos, learn some tricks and tips. By the way, the downside of video is that it's easy to watch a demo, but it's much harder to actually do it when, and if you're watching it on your phone and then trying to remember what it is, that's a bad idea. I always watch it on smart TV, laptop, tablet, and then actually do stuff on the phone. And if you do that, you'll get more out of it. So the last 5 years, enormous explosion in capability, and you should be utilizing it to leverage yourself and getting better and better and better at it.
All right. So how can you use this to your advantage in your personal life, career, business, and deal making?
So one of the things that you want to think about is that we segregate, or should be able to segregate somewhat, and there's a blending, there's a flowing, and this is where there's this whole talk about burnout and other issues. And I think that probably the annoying part of it for some people who are out there whining and moaning, but again, there is no limit to amount of complaining and pissing and moaning that can go on. I mean, we have an unlimited capacity as humans apparently to do this, but let's take it one step at a time. So in your personal life, I think what you need to do is see a smartphone as a mechanism to keep track of your life, and more importantly, keep track of things like health, keep track of things that are interesting, things that you find in this world. Life is all about the experiences we have, the journey that we take, the things that we do. Very important that you think in terms of how do you continuously improve yourself. If you think that the world is going to stop, or this whole explosion of technology is just ending, you're missing out on a very important part of what can go on. You can learn another language, you can learn other skills, you can learn some things that you didn't learn before. My recommendation is that you use this to the maximum in your personal life. Now, most people, again, this is a value judgment on my part, and if it seems harsh, well, tough. Most people that I see who are sitting on airplanes, playing video games, playing whatever they're doing on their phone. Okay, you're making a choice, but are you expanding your horizons and building those out? So in your personal life, how do you expand these things out, and how do you build them so you can get the most out of it? The second one was career, right, Sandra?
Yes, career.
So for your own career, you have to ask yourself, can I use the smartphone to get better every day? If you just get better a little bit every day, a little bit more and a little bit more, what you'll discover is that you're going to be significantly more aware, more educated, more skilled, more capable as time goes on. So in your career, map out what you can do. In fact, I've gotten fascinated by watching all of the various innovations that are happening. Now, some may not be happening as fast as we want them to, but lots of innovations are taking place. So your career is, and this, we talk about it in the book, right? We talk about how do you pivot from one place in your life to another to build a better position, more defensible position, a stronger position. Well, part of that is your responsibility to take on your own career and map out some goals, map out some direction, map out what you want to do. So career is a big thing that a smartphone, that a phone can let you do, because always take those few seconds of time and utilize them and see if you can, step up one more step of the rung. If you want to improve anything in your life, it's great to go out and start doing these kinds of things. But I'm going to stop right here and say, before you do that, kind of map out, I don't care how you do it, you can do it electronically. I like to take paper and pen, but map out what you want to learn, what you want to achieve, what you want to do. There's some kind of magic that happens with humans when you get pen to paper, pencil to paper, crayon to paper, whatever you want to call it. But what you want to do is map out your career and say, okay, this is where I'm at, this is where I want to go. And then go out and seek out the resources, and then try to make sure that you keep track and chronicle these things, because it's easy for this stuff to kind of get blended in. Okay, what's the next one, Sandra?
It was business and then deal making.
So I separate business and deal making as two separate pieces. Business is, how do you run your business successfully each and every day. Now, there's lots of great commercials that show everybody dancing around and they're showing demos, and we put in this new system and it's we're 8,000 million jillion percent better than we were 2 weeks ago and everything. Well, I'm going to tell you that this is where you have to do some thinking to make this work. To get maximum utilization out of any piece of technology, you have to craft it. That's why they have these people called architects. When I meet somebody, like I met somebody earlier this week who put up a website that's been performing for a number of years, and she said, well, why don't you just give it a look? I mean, this is at the resort I'm at. Why don't you give it a look? Tell me what you think. Well, there's a lot of things I think about it. The real question is what does she want to achieve with it? What do you want to achieve with your life and your business? And what you want to do is you want to map these things out, because you're not going to be able to change them overnight. Usually what happens is that people, and this isn't, here's the sad news. This is not like when you crammed for a test and took it from the brain to the paper or to this to the keyboard, and you made it through and you went, whoo, never have to worry about that again. Business is where you have to think about it every day. There's always going to be challenges, there's always going to be surprises, and if you're not expanding and learning, that's on you. So find tools that will help you. I use Evernote every single day. One of the businesses that we have, we use Monday. By the way, there are no affiliate links that we have. I guess we have an affiliate link for Evernote. I don't know. But I recommend these because we actually use them. That's the other thing that I will tell you about this, is to make sure that you know what apps you are using and why you're using them, and are you proficient in getting better. Now, you said the last one was deal making?
Yes.
So deal making is different, because deal making is where you are in the mix, you're in the hunt, you are trying to get things put together. I am always blown away by how many times I will go into a meeting and I have done the research significantly to a deeper level than my other side, which is good because it puts me at an advantage. I am always surprised when I'm talking to coaching clients, consulting clients, and, well, not business partners, because we actually put in the time and do the research, is that when you're doing deal making, make sure that you are chronicling and capturing all the information you need to be in the best possible position you can be in. Mistake after mistake is made, and making a mistake on a deal could be the difference between winning and losing. We want you to be a winner, not a loser. We want you to be successful. We want you to be able to go farther than you've ever gone before, and you want to learn from every deal. I'm going to tell you right now a major insight, and yeah, I guess you could say I saved it to the last, but here it is. Every time you get through with the deal, do a post-mortem. What did you do right? What did you do wrong? But more importantly, what are the good, the bad, and the ugly? The good, the bad, and the ugly. Because what you want to do is you want to learn from each of these. I can tell you that winning teams know the mistakes that they made. I have walked out of deals that have been successful and that we closed, and I can tell you that, yes, we were successful. Yes, things went the way we want them to go, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we didn't leave money on the table or something could have gone better. So in deal making, you should use your smartphone because you have access. You have access. You know what people used to pay for access? I mean, I used to use a service, a research service that was in the beginning $300 a month, and eventually went up to, like, I think $1,000 a month not that many years ago, just so I could get access to this information. Now, it doesn't mean that everything is free, but it just means that we have access to things that we would have never dreamed possible. Use that to your advantage. The point of Phone Wars Part 2 is that I want you to make sure that, first off, you separate parts of your life out with different phones, because that may seem appropriate. I believe it's appropriate. And the second thing is leverage as much of this as you possibly can. And it is on you to become the better person and to become a stronger person, more capable person. It would be great if everybody had the best and highest talent. But you know what? Oftentimes people have high talent, become very lazy. Don't be lazy. Go out there and do that. And if you do that, send us a comment, send us a statement, say, hey, you know what, John, I went out and did these things and I got better at it. So for the ever lovely Sandra and myself, John Paul Maduch, Dutch Speed Selling, this has been Raging Verbalist number 143. Go out and have a great one. and we'll see you next week. And hopefully you'll be a smarter, better you the next time we get together.